Okay, today we're going to talk about solving quadratic functions by factoring. So we've learned how to factor before Thanksgiving, and so today we're going to use our knowledge of that to find the solutions of quadratic functions. Alright, so let's talk about the main concepts. To solve a quadratic equation, it needs to find its roots, its zeros, or its solutions. Now we talked about the fact that those all mean the same thing. It's where it crosses the x-axis, so the x-intercepts. So when we find an x-intercept, when we looked at the table, we noticed the y value is 0. So to solve a quadratic equation by factoring, we're going to factor it and then set it equal to 0. So we would first write this down. These are your steps. We would first factor a quadratic, so we would get the two parentheses sets that we multiplied together. And then we would set that equal to 0. Then we would set each individual factor equal to 0. Alright, the reason we can do that is because if this whole thing equals 0, 0 times anything is equal to 0. So that makes sure that it works. So let's talk about an example. So it says find the solutions to the following quadratic equation. So first things first, we want to set this equal to 0. So I'm going to write 0 equals x squared minus x minus 6. Then I need to factor the quadratic. So remember, your multiply number is 1 times negative 6, which is negative 6. Your add number is negative 1. So what things multiply to get negative 6? Well, we have 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. 1 and 6 does not get to negative 1. But 2 and 3, if we make the 3 negative, it'll equal negative 1. So I'm going to say that 0 is equal to x plus 2, x minus 3. Now, the final step that we need to find the actual solutions, because all this is found is the factors, is we need to set each factor equal to 0 individually. So I'm going to write x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0. Then you just simply solve for x. Here I would subtract 2, so I have one solution, x equals negative 2. Here I would add 3, so x is equal to positive 3. So if you notice, these numbers are very similar to what we found in our multiply and add part, but they have opposite signs. So the solutions are related to the factored form in that they have opposite signs of our factors. So whenever you're doing this, when you get better at it, you can skip the part of setting it equal to 0 and just change the sign of the answers. Let's work the second example. So it says find the solutions of the quadratic equation. So in this case, we're going to say 0 is equal to 4x squared plus 5x minus 6. We need to factor it first. So our multiply number, remember, is 4 times negative 6, which is negative 24. Our add number is 5. So we're looking for two things that multiply to get 24 and add to get 5. So I have 6 and 4, 8 and 3, 2 and 12, and 1 and 24. Now obviously that does not get to 5. That does not get to 5. 6 plus 4 is 10, and 6 minus 4 is 2, so that doesn't either. So we have 8 and 3. We need it to be positive 5, so we're going to say 8 minus 3. So we still have 0 equals, don't forget that. Remember, our step is we do x plus 8, x minus 3. Then don't forget that you have to divide by the 4. So I didn't do that in the other example because it was a 1. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. Don't forget your 0. And this doesn't divide evenly. It cannot reduce, so it's going to become 4x minus 3. At this point, we have it in factored form. It's equal to 0. We're going to set each individual factor equal to 0. Alright, so I'm going to add 3 here first. So I get 4x equals 3. I'm going to divide by 4. So one solution to the quadratic is 3 over 4. Over here I'm going to subtract 2, subtract 2. My second solution is x equals negative 2. Now how does this relate to what we did when we were factoring? Well, notice right here I have a 3/4. And it's negative. So just like before, what I could have done is taken 3/4 and known that that's my solution. Also, and just change the sign of it. Here I have a plus 2. Well, I'm going to change the sign of it and it's going to be negative 2. So you can kind of get a hint as to what your solutions are going to be right here when you factor it. Now, if that confuses you, just keep going with the process and do like this. Make two solution areas. Okay? So let's do one more example together. Now, in this case, our b term is 0. So we know that it's difference of squares. We talked about that the week before Thanksgiving as well. So we're going to do the same thing. 0 is equal to 9x squared minus 25. Now recall that difference of squared is it should be a plus b, a minus b in some form. So a, remember, is 3x. You take the square root of first term. B is 5. You take the square root of second term. So we're going to have 3x plus 5 and 3x minus 5. And that's equal to 0. So then again, we set them equal to 0 on their own. Now if you notice, most likely our answers are going to be very similar, but maybe with a different sign. Let's see if that works out. So I'm going to subtract 5. So I get 3x is equal to negative 5. Divide by 3. So x is equal to negative 5 over 3. Here, I'm going to add 5 first. So I'll get 3x is equal to a positive 5. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. So x is equal to a positive 5 over 3. So when you have difference of squares, your solutions should be the same numbers, but with different signs. So that's how you solve a quadratic by factoring. You first factor it, set it equal to 0, and then split the factors so that each one works down to get an x. So every time you work a quadratic equation, you should most likely have two solutions, because if you think about a parabola, it hits the graph twice, and there's always special instances where it doesn't. So make sure you took good notes of this. Make sure you fill in your summary on your My Weekly Math schedule so that you actually get credit for watching the video. If you're still confused, go back and rewatch the video.